Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Women and Young Members Excellence Committee of I extend warm welcome to all of you to the Sky High Symposium Series 80. It's a platform created by the committee to share technical updates, enhance non-technical skills, and encourage our members to confidently express themselves in the public forums. This initiative aims to empower and inspire our members to step forward and make the most of their abilities. Chairperson of Women and Young Members Excellence Committee, CA Preeti Savlaji, who is also a chairperson of Sustainability Reporting Standard Boards and vice chairperson of Valuation Standard Boards for the year 2023-24. Vice Chairman of Women and Young Members Excellence Committee of ICI, CA Abhay Chajarji, who is also a Chairman of Commercial Laws, Economic Advisory, and NPO Cooperative, and also he is Vice Chairman of Accounting Standard Boards. This Wednesday, program series has been thoughtfully designed to nurture the growth and development of our cherished women and young members. Sky High Symposium is not just a technical updates, it's a platform to cultivate non-technical skills and empower our members to shine confidently on the public stage. Today's session holds the promise of enlightenment as we explore the realm of new labor codes and opportunities for chartered accountants. Our today's speaker, C. Ruchi Gupta ma'am, a true authority in this field, graces us with her insights. Now I take privilege to introduce you C.A. Ruchi Gupta ma'am. Currently, she is a treasurer of Jaipur branch of ICI. She is a qualified chartered accountant with more than 15 years of professional experience with multinational companies like Deloitte and Genpact. She is also a founder of chartered accountancy firm AGRS and Associates, providing business solutions and management consultancy to approximately 100 clients among various industries, including manufacturing, service, hotel, exports, etc. She is also a public speaker and has taken various seminars and also a session on GST and labor laws consultancy. She is also a certified soft skills trainer and has trained more than 1,000 professionals on the interpersonal skills. With this brief, I introduce C.A. Ruchi Gupta ma'am, and also I request her to take a charge of this session. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. As she told me, I'm Ruchi Gupta, and I'm here today for this session. Before, I really wanted to interact with you all so that I would know how much you know about labor laws and what all you understand about the labor compliances. But I think this platform doesn't allow us to interact. So no problem. I'll just share quick facts about labor laws so that you would know why this topic is actually important. I don't know how many of us actually practice in labor laws, or maybe while doing audits and wherever labor law exists, how much compliances we do, I am not very sure. In fact, I'm not sure whether how many of you even know labor law is much more than PF and ESI. I understand while we do audits, we talk about PF, ESI, but I'm not sure how much we know. Labor law is much beyond PF and ESI, and we have to follow and actually be compliant with these compliances, and we should advise our compliance on this. And it's a great opportunity as well. I can assure you in future, our labor law is going to be a big area of practice as well. So let's begin. I'll first talk about the existing scenario, how labor laws are currently working, and how it will impact when new labor codes will come. So currently in India, we are following labor laws, and you would be surprised to know that there are more than 50 central laws and more than 200 state labor laws. And these labor laws are going for a big change in future very soon. The bills of the of the labor codes are being approved in both the houses, but it is yet to be implemented. But believe me, once it is implemented, it is going to be a big area of work. So let's first see the situation, how labor laws are currently working in India. If we take up, this is our latest scenario. We currently have 142 crores of population, and you would be surprised to know that out of which 90 to 95 crores are working population. Working means they are engaged in any which way, maybe employer, employee, labor, any which way, and out of which 50 crores are workers. Okay, so working population is 50 crores who are working and they are registered, right? And this is only 10% of the total working population. Why? Because these are the workers who are working in organized sector. Organized sector basically means any sector which is any which way registered, maybe company, maybe LLP, partnership firm. Individual sole proprietorships, those are not registered anywhere, not having MSME, not having Shop Act. Workers or laborers, employees working in that organizations are not covered in this because it is an organized sector. So organized sector, it is very important definition. One should know what is organized and what is unorganized sector. So organized sector is one which is registered in any which way, because the data can be captured only after registration. So if you're registered anyway in any platform and you have shared the number of details of the employees working under you, the workers under you, labor working under you, then only government can capture that data that yes, this particular organization has this number of workers, and they count those employees or workers in the total working population count. So you would be able to see that 50 crores are the total working population out of working workers, and out of which these are only 10% of the total working population because they are registered in organized sector. Rest are unorganized sector. And as I told earlier, currently we have 52 central labor laws. So what happens is centrally the law is made first, and then the state provides their rules to implement the law. Okay, so 52 central labor laws are there and 200 state labor laws. Every state has to follow their own law, and because depending on the culture, depending on the number of employees, depending on the number of workers, industry setup, everything. So 200 plus state laws, and with the current scenario only 4 lakh plus labor law cases are pending in various courts. So you can imagine the intense work we have in labor laws already. And if you talk about its work, who does this work? If I'm not sure how many of you know, who's with CA is doing labor law work. I'm not sure because in Rajasthan we have hardly few, 4-5 people who are working in labor laws. So majorly labor law work is being done by advocates for now, because it is mostly a litigation work or a return filing work that they perceive that it is just a litigation or return filing work. So advocates are currently doing labor case handling, labor court mein jate hain, litigations or disputes, industrial disputes, and the return filing process. But very soon, when the new labor codes will be introduced, it is going to be a big area for the chartered accountants as well. And you can very well see that with this 52 central labor laws and 200 state labor laws, 4 lakh cases are pending. And I would want to inform you that these labor laws are going to change very soon and will be converted into labor codes. Okay, labor codes very soon once it is implemented. And when the new anything new comes in, a lot of work comes in, and then a lot of litigation comes in because the existing closure will be done of the existing cases. So a lot of work will come in immediately. Let's find out why there is a change and why we are talking about the change that is going to happen in the labor laws. If you have done PF, ESI, gratuity, leave encashment, all these kind of calculations, you would know the definition of basic wages, base wage, or base salary on which calculation is done is different in all that. The Gratuity Act has its own definition. PF Act has its own definition. ESI has its own definition. Leave encashment, everything has its own definition of wage on which the calculation is being done. if any of you are in employment, you would know the PF is deducted on your basic salary. However, ESI is calculated on your gross salary. Similarly, when we calculate gratuity, it is done on your last drawn salary, right? So everywhere the definition of wage on which calculation is done is different. So imagine we have 52 central laws and 200 plus state laws. And in every law, definition is changed for every single thing. Definition of employee change, definition of employer is changed, definition of wages are changed, time limit is changed, returns are changed, different for all the laws. So imagine the kind of compliance work are there already. So and that is one of the reason when you interact with your clients or the businessman, they generally say कि PF ESI से तो हमें दूर रखो. We don't want PF registration. We don't want to get into PF compliances or ESI compliances because they feel that there are a lot of work, a lot of compliances that will additionally be attached in case they get registered themselves into these laws, right? So and just to curb out the non-compliances or non-registrations of businesses, the new codes are coming up. The objective of the new codes are, first is consolidating newer codes. Currently we have lot of codes, because of which the compliances work is too much, and because of that they are going to consolidate the codes into one code. So the central laws, 29 central laws are going to remove now, and it will be converted into 4 labor codes. So imagine earlier you had to do compliances of 29 laws. Now you have to do compliances of only 4 codes, right? So that is the reason. First reason is to consolidate the codes. Second is uniformity in definitions. As I told you, the definitions are different in all the codes. So to provide ease of doing businesses to the businessman, this new definitions or new codes are coming up. Another thing is PF, ESI and labor law work is still very manual. All the litigations, all the queries, everything is manual. अगर आपने कभी PF का काम किया है and you have got Form 8 query, Form 11 queries, then you would know the response that we give to them or the interactions we have with the labor courts, yeah, assessing officer sitting there is still manual. You have to go and convince the labor officer. It is still not 100% technology driven or maybe online, right? So using technology into labor laws is also one of the reasons that the new codes are coming up. And then as you all know that you must also be advising your clients कि आप 9 employees रख लो or maybe 19 employees रख लो, so that you don't have to get into ESI or PF or many other laws. And to bring a transparency into these codes, into these laws, the new labor laws are. And so the overall objective is to provide a compliance easy framework to the businessman, so that they agree to get compliant, they agree to register themselves into these codes. Because if they register themselves in these compliances or in these acts, it is good for the employee and the government as well. Okay, before I actually start the codes or maybe the new codes and various compliances into it, I wanted to tell you one thing so that, while throughout the presentation, you will be very clear. The labor laws or the new labor codes are formed with the intention to protect the right of the employees and not employees, right? The labor laws are formed to protect the right of the employees for the benefit of employees. So जो पूरा objective रहता है labor laws में, that is employees should be protected, because in an employer and employee relationship, it is always presumed that employer is always dominating. Employer will do whatever he wants. So just to safeguard the right of employee, labor laws are made earlier, and some of the labor laws are even before independence. Now the labor codes, which are going to be very soon implemented. So the main reason behind making these laws were to protect the interest of the employees. Now earlier, I hope existing labor laws are familiar to you all of. आपने कहीं ना कहीं इनको यूज किया होगा, be it Payment of Wages Act, Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Bonus Act. ये few acts हैं जो हम ज्यादातर यूज करते ही हैं. PF ESI Act, Gratuity Act, and for others ट्रेड यूनियन एक्ट, फैक्ट्रीज एक्ट, हमको बहुत सारे रजिस्ट्रेशन वी नीड अंडर दिस एक्ट, बिल्डिंग एंड अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन अगर कंस्ट्रक्शन इंडस्ट्री है तो, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लेबर एक्ट, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एक्ट, and many other acts. So these are few acts. Those are now converted into labor codes. So if you see first code that is going to come very soon is Code on Wages 2019. As I told you earlier, all the four codes are being approved in both the houses of the parliament. It is just that the implementation and date of notification is pending. So Code on Wages 2019. So everything related to payment of wages, how to make payment, when to make payment, how much to make payment, what should be the minimum payment. If you have an employee, is he eligible for the bonus? How much you should pay to a male or female worker? Everything related to payment is covered under one single code now, which is Code on Wages. So everything related to payment covers under Code on Wages, and it is formed in 2019. So इसीलिए it is 2019 code. Now everything related to social security. What is social security? PF, ESI, social contributions made for the employee for the social benefit of the employee. So everything related to social contributions or social security of the employee or workers is covered under Code on Social Security 2020. Right? चाहे हम उस पे बात करते हैं compensation act की, if anything happens to the employee, so the compensation that is paid, that is covered under Employee Compensation Act 1923. ESI, as I told you, सबको पता होगा because almost for everyone it is applicable. Employees Provident Fund Act, employee exchanges, maternity benefit, payment of gratuity, senior workers, building and under construction workers, unorganized workers, social security. So these are 9 acts that are now consolidated and just made one single code, which is Code on Social Security 2020. Next is Industrial Relation 2020. Basically, is act code में क्या आएगा? Anything related to safety and maintaining employer-employee relationship is covered under Industrial Relation Code 2020. Right? Trade Union Act की बात करें, चाहे हम Industrial Employment Act की बात करें, Dispute Act की बात करें, those acts are made just to provide safety to the employees, to maintain a healthy relationship between employer and employee. So all the 3 acts are now consolidated into Industrial Relation Code 2020. And once it is implemented, you just have to follow Industrial Relation Code 2020. Next, Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code 2020, right? There are few minimum working conditions that every employer has to provide to its employee. For example, वहाँ पे वॉशरूम्स होने चाहिए, कैंटीन फैसिलिटी होनी चाहिए, कब होनी चाहिए, कितने एम्प्लॉयज में ये कंडीशन मैंडेटरी हो जाती है, नाइट अलाउंस मिलना चाहिए, अगर डबल शिफ्ट में ऑपरेट होते हैं, देन देयर हैज टू बी रेस्टिंग प्लेस, रेस्ट करने के लिए there has to be some places. So all these are few minimum working conditions that every employer has to provide to its employee. This particular code, Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code, that covers all the acts, all the labor acts, that includes the provision for all these things. For example, Factories Act. Factories Act is a big act. I think सबने पढ़ा होगा, नहीं तो कहीं ना कहीं we always use this act, right? चाहे हम लीव इन कैशमेंट की बात कर लेते हैं, उसका प्रोविजन भी यहीं से डिराइव हो जाता है, बहुत सारी चीजें यहाँ से डिराइव होती है, कितनी छुट्टियां मिलनी चाहिए, कब मिलनी होती है, एंड ऑल दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स, कब हमें कौन से रजिस्ट्रेशन की जरूरत पड़ती है, शॉप एस्टेब्लिशमेंट एक्ट है. सो दीज आर एक्ट्स आर पार्ट ऑफ ऑक्यूपेशनल सेफ्टी, हेल्थ एंड वर्किंग कंडीशन कोड 2020. Contract Act, as I mentioned, is a big act, very important act, and अगर हम लोग communicate कर पाते तो I would have received queries. I am sure most of the queries relate to Contract Act only, contractual labor only. Guys, so 13 acts हैं, those has now been consolidated into Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code, and it will be implemented very soon. So once implemented, you just have to follow Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code 2020. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention, now it's a single registration in all codes. Earlier, it was different registration for entire single act or any single act. अगर आपको Factories Act में register होना है, then you have to do one registration. Mines Act में then you have to do another registration. Contract Act में then another registration. So earlier you have to do separate registrations for all the acts, but now because now it is consolidated into codes, you have to do one single registration and you will be covered in all the acts of the single code, right? तो यहाँ पे अगर आप देखेंगे तो आपका compliance part has been reduced. Let's see क्या changes आए. As I mentioned, major reason for introducing the new codes was definitions, because there were a lot of definitions in the existing acts, and the reason behind changing the bringing the new codes is bringing a standardization in the definition so that there will be an ease of doing business. First change and very important change is definition of wages itself. वेजेस पे ही एंटायर लेबर एक्ट्स जो हैं वो डिपेंड करते हैं कि वेजेस कितनी होनी चाहिए, जिसपे हम कैलकुलेशंस करेंगे, जिसपे डिपार्टमेंट कैलकुलेशन करेगा जब आपके ऊपर कोई नोटिस आए. सो देयर इज अ वेज, there is a concept of salary, there is a concept of remuneration, right? Remuneration means whatever you're receiving, salary is whatever you're receiving, wages whatever you're receiving, but there is a definition of wage on which the contributions are calculated. तो अगर हम labor laws की बात करते हैं तो wages means definition on which all the contributions are calculated. Okay, that doesn't means everything that you receive. Wages not everything. एक और चीज मैं क्लियर करना चाहूंगी, there is a misconception that wages तो workers को मिलती है और salary जो होती है that is being received to the जो हम एम्प्लॉयज होते हैं, जो ट्रेन या प्रोफेशनल्स होते हैं, उनको सैलरी मिलती है, और वर्कर्स या लोअर कास्ट जो लोअर कैडर में लोग होते हैं उनको वेजेस मिलता है. नो, एनीथिंग यू रिसीव इज रेम्यूनरेशन. wages is a definition only and salary is again a definition only, right? So आपको जो मिलता है that is remuneration. Okay, for whatever you do, that is remuneration. So wages means all remuneration, whether by way of salary, allowances or otherwise. As I told you कि wages एक बड़ा term है, that is not कि workers को मिलता है. wages में इंक्लूड होगा आपका चाहे सैलरी मिल रहा हो, चाहे आपको अलाउंस मिल रहा हो, या कुछ भी मिल रहा हो, किसी भी नाम को दे दिया हो, आपको देने के लिए कुछ भी नाम रख दिया हो टैक्स कैलकुलेशन के हिसाब से, बट वॉट एवर यू रिसीव इन द फॉर्म ऑफ बेसिक, DA and retaining allowance is your wages. Okay, you might receive other components in your salary, in your remuneration, in your CTC, but wages means basic plus DA plus retaining allowance. Okay, कुछ स्पेसिफिक एक्सक्लूजन्स कर दिए गए कि आपके वेजेस के डेफिनेशन में ये नहीं माना जाएगा. क्या नहीं माना जाएगा? बोनसेस, HRA, PF, ESI, because that is already computed on wages, right? How can it be part of it? HRA, any other thing, any other allowance, any overtime, commission, जिसका terminology is not equivalent to basic, DA and retaining. ठीक है, retaining means retention, कि आपको retain करने के लिए. So these are excluded specifically. कुछ specified inclusions भी हैं कि इसको तो wages माना ही जाएगा. Okay, what is that? क्या होता है कि whenever a company plans the salary structure of an employee, they plan the salary structure in such a manner कि company पे burden कम से कम आए. At the same time, when an employer plans a salary structure, what he does is वो ऐसा प्लान करना चाहता है कि उसका इनकम टैक्स कम से कम आए, right? So there has to be a balance in the salary structure that the compliances, the burden of the PF ESI is low and the income tax is also low, right? थोड़ा टैक्स बच सके. आपने देखा होगा कि बड़ी कॉर्पोरेट्स में they have a salary structure में बहुत सारे components होते हैं. Ultimately है तो that is a part of salary. Then why so many components? The reason is because some of the components are tax free. And just to remove the burden or lessen the burden of tax, they design the salary structure in a manner कि कम से कम tax employee पे आ सके, right? Now what happens is an employer, what he does is he tries to keep the wages portion. Wages means basic plus DA plus retaining to a minimum portion. Okay, so that his burden of PF and ESI would be lower. क्योंकि जितना एम्प्लॉय कंट्रीब्यूट करता है एम्प्लॉयर भी करता है, अगर एम्प्लॉय कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है तो एम्प्लॉयर भी करेगा, राइट? If employee contributes to PFESI, then employer also has to contribute, and the burden would be on employer. Employer, what he tries is component कम से कम रहे. एम्प्लॉय हमेशा क्या चाहेगा? एम्प्लॉय चाहेगा ज्यादा से ज्यादा रहे, क्योंकि पीएफईएसआई इस पे कंप्यूट होगा. सो गवर्नमेंट ने एक बैलेंस बनाया. गवर्नमेंट ने कहा ठीक है ऐसा करते हैं, लेट्स कम टू अ कंक्लूजन दैट योर बेसिक wages the total wages should be at least 50% of the salary structure of the CTC. Means अगर आपका 10 लाख का पैकेज है for you, then it would be assumed that 50% मतलब 5 lakh would be your wages, on which social security contributions, other contribution, gratuity जो calculations होती हैं will be done. So at least 50% of your salary, your remuneration would be your wages, right? So now चाहे बेसिक के फॉर्म में दे दे, चाहे डीए की फॉर्म में, चाहे रिटेनिंग, एटलीस्ट 50% ऑफ द टोटल रेम्युनरेशन हैज टू बी योर वेजेस, एंड इसके ऊपर कैलकुलेशन होगा. जस्ट इन केस आपका कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन, आपका वेजेस का पोर्शन कम है, देन व्हाट? जो एग्जिस्टिंग स्ट्रक्चर चल रहे होंगे इस कोड से इंप्लीमेंट होने से पहले, वो तो कम हो सकते हैं. वी हैव हर्ड कि 40% इज योर बेसिक. डीए पोर्शन मिलता नहीं प्राइवेट कंपनीज में, सो 40% होती है बेसिक्स. सो व्हाट विल हैपन टू देम? It will be assumed that the 50% of the total remuneration is wages, and the employer has to calculate the contribution on that 50% only. Doesn't matter if your basic is only 40%, right? So now, to prevent tax planning, to prevent employee planning, employer planning, now government has done has given and revised the definition of wages, that your wages would be assumed to be 50% of your total remuneration. तो ये है कंडीशनल इंक्लूजन, मतलब 50% तो आपका वेजेस माना ही जाएगा, right? Now, remuneration in kind, you would have heard about it. Remuneration in kind, a lot of companies gives remuneration in kind to their employees, अगेन फॉर टैक्स प्लानिंग पर्पसेस. एम्प्लॉय को टैक्स पे करना पड़ता. वाउचर्स मिलते हैं बहुत सबको, सोडेक्सो वाउचर्स होते हैं, रिडीमेबल वाउचर्स होते हैं, और गिफ्ट वाउचर्स होते हैं, बहुत सारी चीज होती है. नाउ गवर्नमेंट हैज सेड व्हाइल मेकिंग दिस लॉ, इट हैज बीन अज्यूम्ड दैट whatever you give in kind, no, not a problem, but the total your remuneration in kind could not exceed 15% of the total wages payable to him. आप कितना भी दे दो, 15% से ज्यादा नहीं माना जाएगा. आपने पूरी की पूरी वेजेस उसको काइंड में दे दी फॉर द टैक्स प्लानिंग पर्पस. That doesn't mean you can do that. Yes, your wages or your kind remuneration will be assumed to be only 15%. आप 15 में planning कर लो, for rest you have to pay tax. Now, another set of definitions that has a huge impact in the labor codes. Employer. The biggest question is whether contractor is an employer. Yes. With this definition, contractor is also an employer. And already you would know that employer, in case you have a contractual labor, there is a term contractor who provides the contractual labor. Now, who follows the compliance of KFESI? Is it contractor or employer? In this case, we call employer principal employer. Whenever there is a contract labor, the contractor supplies the labor, and ultimately, wherever at what place labor works, that place is, and the employer of that place is known as principal employer. So, in case of contractual labor, the ultimate responsibility currently is of principal employer. So in case I have an organization wherein I have 10 plus contractual labor, 15 plus contractual labor, whatever, I have contractual labor, and my contractor does not deposit PF, does not deposit ESI on my behalf, then what my principal employer has to do, that principal employer has to deposit PF ESI, and that principal employer can claim back the PF ESI contribution from the contractor. So ultimate responsibility belongs to principal employer. This is a very important point, very important. नए कोड्स में क्या हो गया? नए कोड्स में कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को प्रिंसिपल एम्प्लॉयर ही मान लिया कि एम्प्लॉयर ही होता है, तो प्राइमरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी किसकी हो गई? कॉन्ट्रैक्टर की. क्योंकि कॉन्ट्रैक्टर नहीं करता तो स्टिल principal employer has to fulfill the compliances, still fulfill. Okay, so ultimately principal employer को करनी पड़ती है, but primarily किसकी responsibility है? Contractor की. Okay. Now, कुछ particular case में who is not covered under employee is apprentice. Anybody who is working as an employee. Employee की definition very clear. Any person employed on wages by the establishment, किसी भी तरीके का काम करे, he is an employee. Who is excluded is apprentice. मतलब हम जो trainees रखते हैं apprentice act के अंदर, only apprentice covered under apprentice act are excluded by calculating number of employees. Now, another definition is contractor. Anybody who supplies labor is contractor. Gig worker, very important change. Gig worker means any. Can you reply back on chat? No. Okay. What happens is we have a freelancer concept these days that you can actually work for your employer or maybe somebody just for a project, 1 day, 2 day, 1 hour it's as well. So what happens is these kind of employees are not covered anywhere. There is no count, there is no registration, nothing of the gig workers. Just to provide a sense of security to these kind of employees, gig worker, and these are called gig workers, means part-time workers. Just to provide a security to these workers, they are also now covered under employee definition. Gig workers are also employed. In the same manner, fixed term employment means anybody who is employed with a employer for a certain period, maybe 1 year, 6 months, they are also now covered in the definition of employee. So the rules of the labor laws are also applicable on these employees. Platform workers, anybody who is supplying services through online platform. Unorganized worker, everybody, if we talk about gig worker, fixed term, platform, they all are unorganized sector because there are no registrations to these employees. So they are all unorganized worker working in the unorganized sectors. All the laborers are not registered anywhere, are unemployed. Freelancers, unemployed. Self-employed, unorganized, sorry. Self-employed workers, unorganized workers, all who are not into an organized sector. किसी platform से नहीं आ रहे, कहीं पे register नहीं है, they all are unorganized workers. The biggest change that are coming up with this new labor codes is now all these employees, all these workers, all these people are also covered under the definition of employee. So all the labor laws are applicable to them as well. So this is the biggest change. अगर हम बात करते हैं कि चलो change हो गया labor code, what will happen? What change? So the biggest change is the definition itself. Earlier, you were doing a planning of number of employees in your organization. For example, you are keeping your employees to number 9 and 3 apprentices with any name, and your 3 labor contract laborers, and you're saying that I just have 9 employees, so PF is not applicable to me. Now you will not be able to do that. Even the platform workers, freelancers, contract laborers, all those will also be covered into your employee count base, and PF would be applicable. So this is going to be a big change. I understand this change will not impact small firms, small organizations where only 5, 6, 7, 8 employees are there. But imagine an organization, BPO industry, employee-based industries wherein we have 100, 200, 5,000 employees. A big change is going to be there. Imagine the employer from employer side. The contributions would be changing very soon, right? The contribution to social security schemes will be changing. Earlier, they were contributing only for, let's say, 100 employees. Now they might have to contribute for 150 employees. So suddenly the contribution portion will be changed. The expense will be changed. The provisioning of, social security contributions will change. So a big change is going to come very soon. Now, it's a big codes. People ask me whether after coming the new labor codes, do we have to understand the existing labor laws, because there are a lot of labor laws existing. I feel that whenever you do something new or maybe a change comes in, you should know what was existing first. Then only you can actually relate and know the reason why the new code or new act has come up. What is the intention behind that? We probably cannot list down everything that is changing, but I have just listed down few important things that will change. First of all, the code on wages, the first code that we talked about, and we are talking about two codes here, code on wages and code on social security. So both of these codes are applicable to all establishments. First and foremost important thing is it is applicable to all the establishments, right? There is no exception, and it covers all employees. Earlier, managerial cadre को supervisory roles में माना जाता था. They were not covered under this, but now it is applicable to all the cadre. Biggest change is definition of wages. Definition of wages की वजह से we cannot estimate right now what impact can come. We are doing provisioning for a lot of organization, big corporates, wherein we identify the provisions that they have to make for employee contributions. इसका notes to accounts में भी disclosure जाता है, सब जाता है. And while we do this, and when we are doing labor law consultancy, I am surprised to see that the profit and loss account of the big corporates are going to move or shake with this change if it comes in, because the contributions are going to change suddenly. The count is going to change suddenly of the number of employees. The base salary on which the contributions are being calculated, this is going to change very soon, and because of that the impact would be huge. And it is suggestive that if you have these kind of clients, you should estimate the difference that is going to come in the financials right now itself, because it is already very delayed. The codes were passed in 2019 and 20 only, and we are on 23. It was expected to be implemented in earlier in June, then August. We expected it on Diwali, pre-Diwali, and now there is no possibility of the codes passing in because elections are very soon. So, but once it is implemented, a big change is going to come, and you will not have much time to understand the impact. So it is better if you have these kind of client base, you should do brainstorming with them about the changes that is going to happen with this. So we were on the changes that will come in the Code on Wages Act code. Since the definition of wage will change, the amount contribution of wages will change, right? The total contribution of wages will change. That's a big change. Of course, for every organization, money is important, and especially to those organizations, those are resources based or employee based, a big impact on those organizations is going to come. There is a system of national floor wage that is going to be introduced with this. Anybody would have heard of minimum wages? So minimum wages is a minimum wage that every employer has to pay to the employee. And basically this concept is for worker class, right? So that they work and they get something in a minimum salary or minimum wages in return. So what happens is central government fix a minimum wage. That's a national floor wage. And on the basis of that, every state government fixes their own minimum wages. So as a wage rate is being fixed by the central government, for example, which is 130 or so right now. And on the basis of that, depending on the working culture, depending on the number of laborers, depending on the living style, depending on the cost of living of that particular state, every state government fixes the minimum wages. And every employer is supposed to pay wages equivalent to that minimum wages at least. For example, in Rajasthan, the minimum wages are 172. Okay, every employer is supposed to pay 172 at least to the employee per day. Okay, so that's a minimum wage, and the concept of national floor wages there, and your minimum wages has to be aligned to the national floor wages, and it's a new concept. It's the first time national floor wages will be introduced. Now, big change with the timelines as well, and the biggest change is with penalties as well. I'll talk about the penalties in detail. That is very important, because जब तक हमें penalty, हम being a CA, हमें penalties के बारे में पता नहीं होता, we do not consider anything important, right? So अभी क्या होता है? I think most of us pay salary to our staff on maybe 6, 7. That is the last date. So the new timelines are coming out with the new codes that you have to pay the wages by 7th. By 7th करना ही है. I'm not sure कि CA firms कब तक पे करती हैं, या फिर जो proprietary firms होती हैं I know a lot of firms जो कि 10th तक भी pay नहीं करती हैं. So a big, cap for them on the date by which the salary has to be disbursed. Okay, and similarly, recoveries पे भी cap है. अगर आपके कुछ employees हैं, those who are taking advances from the employer, and then there is a cap कि आप उनसे इतना ही recover कर सकते हो in a month. So you cannot recover you cannot say that you will not get 3 months salary because you have taken advance of like say any amount, right? But that is also there. So I mean, अगर आप देखेंगे तो these new codes are with the objective to provide a security to the employees. So a lot of changes are there, and employers के लिए ये भी कह सकते हैं कि it's, since a lot of compliances are getting reduced because of the merger or the consolidation of the laws acts, but again it's compliances तो हैं, at the same time obligations भी हैं with this new code. Settlement time in case of resignation, very important, believe me, because I have not seen this happening anywhere. It has been said that जब भी कोई अगर if any of you had been an employee या फिर आपके पास employee है जिसमें आप full and final वाला concept follow करते हो, so what happens is whenever an employee leaves an organization, so what happens is his last month's salary put on hold, and जब उसका full and final होता है, then the salary would be released. It might take a month, it might take 2 months, or it can take 3-4 months as well. अगर कुछ disputed होता है या recoveries होती हैं all that stuff. With this new code, it is being said that your full and final settlement has to be done within 5 days. I'm not sure how feasible it is, because I understand for firms or for the mediocre firms or maybe small organizations, it is still possible. Where lesser number of attritions are there, या movement बहुत कम होती, turnover बहुत कम होती employees की. But imagine for a situation if you are a BPO or a corporate client, or having employees strength of 200, 300, 400, and you have a regular attrition in hand, right? So imagine for those situations how the work of HR is competitive right now with this new changes. So at this point of time, मुझे एक और भी काम याद आया. The opportunity that is for CAs with the new codes is HR training. The new codes are bringing a lot of changes for the HR department for every corporates. So जो HR department होता है in any corporate, it is restricted to the basic laws of salary, wages. They just understand whatever the law has been framed, and because they are following up these kind of things since ages, so they understand कि PF 12% ही करता है, 10% कब करता है, and कटना है तो नहीं कटना है, तो all this stuff. With this new change, who is going to train these HR? It is we. So this is again an opportunity for the chartered accountants to prepare themselves for the HR consultancy work. And we are doing it. And I'm saying because there is a scope. We are doing this, we are doing consultancy just for HR, HR advisory on this, because HRs are not that trained that they understand the law, the changes in the law, and they understand the impact of the same. It is you who has to prepare yourself first and then train the HR of different corporates. Not just your existing clients, you can pitch in for the new clients as well for this, right? So again, that's a new scope, HR consultancy, because this code will change the act entirely. And with this, you have an opportunity to explain the concept, the changes with the team. Okay, settlement time we talked about, and there is one important thing that I mentioned is penalties and prosecution. I'm not sure how many of you are practicing in labor laws, but if in case you are practicing, you would know कि अभी अगर हम PF ESI डिले कर देते हैं या रिटर्न नहीं भरते हैं, तो शायद हम इंटरेस्ट एंड लेट फी पे भी नहीं करते हैं, इंस्पेक्शन चार्जेस वगैरह इमीडिएटली तो पे भी नहीं करते हैं, बट जस्ट इन केस कभी इन ईयर्स कोई नोटिस आता है, देन वी पे, and the penalty is very less, maybe 1,000, 2,000. This is the only penalty for delaying deposit or non-deposit or less deduction of the PF ESI. It is just कि income tax में disallow हो जाता है. That is the only thing that we consider, right? But I will show you the penalty chart, and with that you would be surprised कि the penalties are even much more or maybe equivalent to income tax now, right? So you can understand the criticality or maybe the importance of the acts now. Next is code on social security. Social security, anything related to social security payments. As I told you, the gig workers, freelancers, platform workers, fixed term employees will also be covered in social security contributions. So imagine from an organization point of view, you are an employer, आपने किसी से पार्ट टाइम काम करवाया, फिक्स टर्म पे करवाया है, और मे बी प्लेटफॉर्म टाइम पे करवाया, प्लेटफॉर्म वर्क कर लिया आपने, ऑनलाइन किसी से वेबसाइट बनवा ली, एंड इमेजिन आपको उसका भी वीएवीएसआई डिडक्ट करना पड़ जाए एंड डिपॉजिट करना पड़ जाए, तो so that's a new thing that we're talking about, right? So a big change is going to come with the coverage of these employees in this code, right? कैसे implement होगा, कैसे आएंगी guidelines, that is yet to come. Every state will form the guidelines कि कैसे implement होगा, because how is it possible to actually cover platform workers or maybe freelancers for PFESI, right? But they are now being included. पीरियड ऑफ लिमिटेशन इंट्रोड्यूस्ड कि आपका जो क्लेम है आप इतने ही दिनों में कर सकते हो, दैट इज द काइंड ऑफ लिमिटेशन. लेट्स नॉट डिस्कस दैट इन डिटेल, बट वन इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग अगेन, penalties are huge. I will show you the penalty chart and you'll be surprised. Penalties are like in thousands, 50,000, 1 lakh now, which was earlier only 1,000 or 2,000, right? So with the penalty thing, you can, actually make your client feel that this code is important. The labor laws, the compliances are important. And now you have a new area to work with your clients, right? Okay. We talked about that a few big changes that are going to come in these codes, but let's also see where all these changes will impact. For example, if we talk about definition of wages, it will impact in coverage of ESI payment of bonus. We'll also cover a few practical examples just to show the impact of change, right? Just with the change in the definition of wages, the coverage of employees for PF, ESI, gratuity, bonus will be changed. Okay? कि एम्प्लॉय की सिर्फ वेजेस की डेफिनेशन चेंज करने की वजह से ही आपका कौन से एम्प्लॉय को मिलना और कौन से एम्प्लॉय को नहीं, वो भी चेंज हो जाएगा. ओके, व्हाट अबाउट पीएफ, डेफिनेशन ऑफ वेजेस चेंजेस होने की वजह से अगेन इसका भी चेंज हो जाएगा. अगर आपकी बेसिक 15,000 होती है तो आपका मैंडेटरी होता है, राइट? उसके ऊपर मैंडेटरी नहीं होता. अगर आपकी विद द चेंज इन द डेफिनेशन ऑफ वेजेस इटसेल्फ, आपका चेंज वेजेस की डेफिनेशन ही चेंज हो गई और आपका कंट्रीब्यूशन का अमाउंट ही चेंज हो गया. फॉर एग्जांपल 15,000 रही नहीं आपकी बेस सैलरी, तो आपके ऊपर एप्लीकेबल नहीं हुआ, और मे बी वेजेस के होने से आपके 15,000 पहले नहीं हो रहा था और अब वो हो गया तो आपके ऊपर एप्लीकेबल हो गया. सो द कवरेज विल आल्सो बी चेंज्ड, राइट? At the same time, same is applicable for ESI. Now for gratuity, as I told you, gratuity will now also be covered for fixed term employees. पहले क्या रूल था? अगर आपने 5 years continuous service दी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को तो ही आपके ऊपर ग्रेचुटी एप्लीकेबल होती है. In this new code, it is mentioned that it will also be applicable to fixed term employees. कैसे होगा? That you will know very soon once the rules are there. But it is being, disclosed that this is going to happen. ये change आने वाला है. And with this, the contribution of gratuity will also increase. तो आप ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के हिसाब से सोचिए, यहाँ पे एम्प्लॉयर के हिसाब से सोचिए कि आपका खर्चा बढ़ने वाला है, आपका कंट्रीब्यूशन बढ़ने वाला है, क्योंकि ये फिक्स टर्म को भी मिलेगा. ओवर टाइम, पहले क्या होता था कि ओवर टाइम से वर्कर्स को मिलता था, और अब जो ओवर टाइम है वो मैनेजरियल कैडर को भी मिलेगा, सुपरवाइजरी रोल्स वालों को भी मिलेगा. तो दैट्स अ गुड न्यूज. गिग वर्कर्स एंड प्लेटफॉर्म वर्कर्स की अगर हम बात करें, सो दे आर नाउ, पहले देयर इज नो सोशल सिक्योरिटी कंट्रीब्यूशन फॉर देम, नाउ दे विल आल्सो बी एलिजिबल. Who will be, entitled to contribute for their social security contribution? It is not aggregators. I'm not sure how many of you are providing online services. Otherwise, there is few sites named Freelancer, Upwork, all these sites. वहां पे आपको register होना पड़ता है, and then you are delivering services to variety of people, clients. So these people are not an aggregator, right? तो जिसके थ्रू आप जिसके जाके आप जहाँ रजिस्टर होते हो और फिर आप सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करते हो, तो these aggregators will be responsible to deduct and deposit PF and ESI on behalf of you, or maybe other social security contributions. Payment of wages, इसको हमने बहुत सारा डिस्कस नहीं किया, but what happens is, as I told you, एक एम्प्लॉय के लिए मिनिमम कर दिया कि एक एम्प्लॉय वन एम्प्लॉय विल टेक एटलीस्ट 50% ऑफ पेमेंट एट होम. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपकी सैलरी 10,000 है, तो आप एटलीस्ट 5,000 तो घर लेके जाओगे. कैसे? अर्लियर क्या होता था कि एम्प्लॉय होता है, उसको 10,000 मिलता है, उसके बहुत सारे कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन कर देते हैं और नेट बचता उसका 4,000 है, लेस देन 50%. तो इसका इन हैंड तो कुछ हुआ ही नहीं, राइट? Now it is being said that employer will take in hand at least 50%, which means अगर आपके कोई भी deductions या contributions and that will be restricted to your 50% of wages only. At the same time, अगर आपसे कुछ recoveries हैं, for example advances दिए हुए थे आपने and the employer has to recover that advances, he will not be able to recover entire. जैसे मैंने पहले कहा कि आपके 3 months की सैलरी खत्म, अब आप 3 महीने बाद ही आना क्योंकि आपने 3 महीने की सैलरी एडवांस ले ली. नो, you have to divide that recovery into portions so that आप at least 50% तो cash में employee को दोगे. Okay, now that was code on wages and social security, and now let's talk about industrial relation code and other securities code, other occupational code. Industrial relation code, as I told you, it is about maintaining a healthy relation between employer and employee so that वो शांति बनी रहे और आराम से काम हो. There is a term called standing order whenever there is an order or maybe that entity has to get, they give it by standing order. Earlier it was for 100, now it has been increased to whenever there is an 300 employee, then standing order will be applicable. Let's only talk about the important ones. Retrenchment. I'm not sure how many of you know about the retrenchment term. Retrenchment मतलब निकाल देना, right? छटनी करना employees की. So what happens is an organization at times, because they are on a closure mode or maybe they have disclosed some certain operations, they have discontinued certain operations, they do retrenchment, retrench employee. Maybe they put it into other processes or maybe they remove them at all, right? So now retrenchment would not that be easy. It is not on employer that जब भी चाहे retrenchment कर दिया, तो अभी भी इतना easy नहीं होता. But still, what they do is they contribute to 15 days salary, 1 month salary, and they will retrench. But now, in case you are retrenching an employee, then you have to contribute additional 15 days salary to retrenchment compensation fund, which will be then used for the development of the employees itself. So, again, अगर हम देखें तो employer पे बहुत सारे कंप्लाइंसेस बढ़ गए हैं, बहुत सारे रिस्ट्रिक्शंस और चेक्स लग गए हैं कि ये नहीं हो सकता और ये हो सकता है. द रीजन वाई इट इज हैपनिंग, द रीजन इज दैट एक तो एम्प्लॉयर रजिस्टर नहीं करता अपने आप को, एक एंटिटी अपने आप को रजिस्टर नहीं करती, एंड द सेकंड इज दैट दे डू नॉट डू कंप्लायंसेस, एंड अल्टीमेटली हु इज द सफरर इज ओनली द एम्प्लॉय. So that is considered, and now because of that this is happening. Negotiating unions, again, it's an important concept. What happens is whenever there is a trade union, there is a negotiating union. Trade unions employee side पे होती है और negotiating union employee side पे होती है, and they negotiate with each other for any dispute. अगर हम बात करें कितना important एक्ट है, ये कोड है, तो a lot of work, सारा litigation ही इस पे होता है कि मुझे निकाल दिया, I have been illegally retrenched, मेरी सैलरी रोक दी गई, मुझे स्ट्राइक हो गई, उसकी वजह से कंपनी को लॉसेस हुए, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट कंपनी हैज डिसकंटिन्यूड बोनस एंड ऑल दैट स्टफ. इस तरह के बहुत सारे केस स्टडीज हैं कि ऑन दिस. सो इंडस्ट्रियल रिलेशन कोड इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड इन केस एनीबडी wants to go into litigation thing, they should study it well. Dispute act, and there is one industrial dispute act, you should study that, and it's very important. So we have few clients जो कि manufacturing concerns हैं. In case you have any manufacturing client, you would have seen one thing. There are certain boards displayed in the premises. यहाँ पे कोई child labor नहीं है. Sunday is an holiday for the employees. ऐसे करके लिखा होता है वहाँ पे, Sunday का अवकाश रहता है. यहाँ पे कोई child labor नहीं है, और ये तंबाकू टोबैको फ्री जोन है, और इस तरह से बहुत सारी चीजें रहती है वहां पे. बहुत सारे नंबर्स लिखे होते हैं, साइंस लिखे होते हैं, हेल्प डेस्क लिखा होता है, और अब लंच टाइम लिखा होता है, एंड ऑल दीज टर्म्स होते हैं. These all things are covered under occupational safety, health and working condition codes. जो इसके अंदर आपके एक्ट्स कवर होते हैं, ये उनकी कंप्लायंसेस हैं. One more thing you would have observed, if you have any any such factories as a client, generally होता क्या है in factories, most on manufacturing concerns, generally they have PF, ESI and all that stuff. They follow that compliances. Even then, they are very, very, fear रहता है उनको हमेशा of inspection का and inspecting officer का. The reason behind is Inspector Raj. A lot of Inspector Raj is there in the labor law work. Because what happens is इतनी सारी compliances हैं in labor laws that even if an organization is following everything, they might miss up on anything. As I told you, a lot of boards, signboards has to be displayed within the premises, stating ये नहीं होता है, ये follow होता है, all these whatever is there कि washroom यहाँ है या फिर ये period जो है वो lunch time रहता है या ये हम 8 घंटे काम कराते हैं या ये 1 shift में चलती है 2 shift में चलती है, everything is there. और एम्प्लॉयर क्या होता है इनका तोड़ निकालता रहता है, they are trying to bring leakages in the laws and try to do something. So what happened is a lot of visits are there. इंस्पेक्टर को कहीं सपोज there is a full road of manufacturing concerns. What happens is अगर इंस्पेक्टर एक कहीं पे आ गया किसी ऑफिस में, तो what he does is he knows कि some of the misses would be there in the other office as well. So what he does is he enters the other premises as well. And and the organizations, what they do is they just want कि वो अंदर डिटेल्स में तो जाए ना. What they do is they try to give some money and escape from the inspector, and this is Inspector Raj. With this new codes, this will be curtailed a lot because compliances बहुत ज़्यादा systematic हो जाएंगी and penalties भी इतनी ज़्यादा हैं that employer will rather go for the compliances rather than suffering with the consequences of it. And with this, Inspector Raj will also be reduced. And a huge role of inspector is there in this particular codes, right? So let's also study occupational safety, health and working condition code. इसमें क्या change आ रहा है? And I'm telling you, this is very important. Whomsoever is having manufacturing clients, factories clients, this is very important. Single registration for all establishments, very important. इस पे बहुत सारे ऐसे एक्ट्स कर हैं जिसके रजिस्ट्रेशन होते हैं कि अगर आप इस पर्टिकुलर इंडस्ट्री में हो तो आपको ये एक्ट फॉलो करना है, आप इस इंडस्ट्री में हो तो आपको ये एक्ट फॉलो करना है. एंड विद दिस इसमें सिंगल रजिस्ट्रेशन है. बीच में एक न्यूज बहुत ज्यादा आई थी कि वर्किंग कल्चर होने वाला है हमारा इंटरनेशनल जैसा. 8 आवर्स वर्किंग आवर्स होते हैं इन अ डे. मैक्सिमम 48 आवर्स है ना, वीक स्प्रेड रहता है. अर्लियर पर डे कैपेसिटी इज या लिमिट जो है दैट इज 8 आवर्स. इट इज गोइंग टू एक्सटेंड फॉर 12 आवर्स. Means you can work for 12 hours a day, but the week stretch is only 48 hours, which means 4 days working culture. बीच में आई मीन इन केस यू गूगल करोगे आप ये सिर्फ इतना सा कि 4 days वर्किंग कल्चर इन इंडिया, यू विल फाइंड अ लॉट ऑफ वीडियोस ऑन दिस जिसमें ये बोला गया था कि बहुत जल्दी इंडिया में भी 4 days वर्किंग कल्चर आने वाला है. बिकॉज जो आपका पर डे लिमिट था वो एक्सटेंड होके 12 आवर्स हो सकता है. तो 12 हो सकता है, तो वीकली रिस्ट्रिक्शन तो वही है 48 आवर्स की, तो इट कुड बी 4 days वर्किंग कल्चर. I'm not sure how many of you does this, but this is very important. Appointment letter. Majorly CA firms में, I also on a CA firm, and we have seen that appointment letters are either not issued, and if issued is just a formality. Now, appointment letters are going to play a very important role. Appointment letter basically बनते क्यों हैं? We actually do not realize the importance of appointment letter because हम शायद इतनी employment नहीं होती अपने यहाँ पे, या फिर we can say that इतना dispute नहीं होता because we have educated staff, तो हमें इतना issues नहीं आते हैं. Otherwise, I'll tell you the importance of appointment letter, and I'm saying you this with one of my experience, and there is a case law on this as well. What happens is an employee was retrenched by an organization with a saying that he was unable to deliver his responsibility. That is why we are retrenching him. The employee filed the case against the employer, saying that I am being retrenched from my professional duties, though I have not been paying the retrenchment compensation, and I have not served my period of employment as well. So there is a conclusion on it that since the employee was not carrying requisite skills, which was mentioned in the appointment letter, अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर में लिखा that your designation would be this, you are supposed to fulfill all your responsibilities as this, you are supposed to do this, and you would yeah, you are required to do submissions like this, you have to deliver all these, and then you would be paid a salary of this per month, 6 months probation, and post that will be confirmed. This is all what is, if it is mentioned in appointment letter, then it serves your purpose. अगर सब हम ये लिख देते हैं कि you are being appointed as a audit assistant, audit executive, senior executive, and you will pay a compensation of this much, this is not suffice, believe me. बहुत जल्दी अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर के भी आपको पूरा फॉर्मेट आएगा कि इसमें ये चीजें होनी चाहिए. So what happens is appointment letter is the objective behind appointment letter is कि आप एम्प्लॉय को उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज बताओगे, उसकी टाइमिंग्स बताओगे, उसका रोल बताओगे, उससे एक्सपेक्टेशंस क्या हैं वो बताओगे इन द अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर. एंड इफ यू आर नॉट मेंशनिंग ऑल दिस, अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर डजंट मेक एनी सेंस, राइट. nobody is going to dispute for the remuneration, वो तो हम orally fix कर लेते हैं, उससे लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है. So that is the importance of appointment letter कि अगर आपको कल को उसके against कोई action लेना है, then you should know कि what is there in the appointment letter, under which grounds you can fight with that, right? That is important. The issuance of appointment letter is going to be mandatory for all employees and for all the industries. Contract labor बहुत important है. In case anybody has any question, they can ask me later on, because contractual labor में बहुत सारे questions आते ही हैं हमारे पास. And monetary policies, penalties बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. We'll see the penalty chart very soon. Okay, so that was industrial relation code. अब एक बार हम पढ़ते हैं कि change होगा, लेकिन change होने से impact क्या आएगा, right? Mandatory issue of appointment letter, as I mentioned earlier. Appointment letter to be issued to every employee in a specific format. Aadhaar number, labor identification number, universal account number. Do we mention all this in the appointment letter? We don't at all. Appointment letter in specified format shall be issued to existing employee within 3 months of the commencement of the code as well. अगर आपने नहीं किया हुआ इस particular format में ये चीजें include नहीं की हैं, तो आपको दोबारा से appointment letter issue करना पड़ेगा with the implementation of the new code. This is as per the कोड जो अभी इन्होंने बनाया है, अभी इंप्लीमेंट नहीं हुआ है, इसका कुछ भी रूल्स नहीं आए, नोटिफिकेशन नहीं आया, तो अभी कुछ नहीं करना है. बट जस्ट इन केस ये नया कोड आ जाता है तो आपको ये काम करना पड़ेगा. एंड बिलीव मी, फॉर सेफ्टी पर्पस एज वेल, एवरीबडी शुड बी गिवन एन अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर. उसकी रूल्स एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बड़ी क्लियरली मेंशन होनी चाहिए. डेट ऑफ ज्वाइनिंग और डेट ऑफ बीइंग परमानेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है. And we do not realize till the time हमारे ऊपर कोई litigation नहीं आता है इसमें, but this is really important. So we should take care of these dates. सैलरी भी जितना डिस्क्रिप्टिव हो सके उतना ढालना चाहिए. दो सीए फॉर्म्स में इतना इम्पैक्ट नहीं रहता, बट स्टिल जितना पॉसिबल हो उसे एलैबोरेटेड बनाइए. लीव एनकैशमेंट की अगर हम बात करते हैं, सो व्हाट इज द रूल करेंटली? If an employee has worked for 240 days in a year, previously in 240 days in the organization, is eligible for leave encashment. Now it is 180 days. अगर आपने 180 days काम किया तो आप leave encashment के लिए eligible हो जाओगे with the new code, अगर ये implement होता है तो. Right? So again, वो देखा जाए तो उसकी eligibility बढ़ गई है employee की for the leave encashment as well. So you could see that a lot of things are being doing, government is doing for the employee. Right? And everything, and believe me, everything is for not just for the sake of employee, but provide ease of doing business to the employer as well, so that with the minimum compliances, he is now a registered business. Okay. Reskilling fund, as I told you, if you retrench an employee, other than paying a salary to the employee, extra month salary, you are required to pay 15 days wages to the reskilling fund, which will be then utilized for the upskilling of the employee only. Okay. Now penalties, the most important part. If you see the penalty, you will realize how what a big change that is going to happen in this act. Code on wages. Have you ever seen a penalty of 50,000 for labor laws? Not at all. An employer would not have paid 50,000 in his entire years of operation to the labor department. And believe me, labor department is सबसे slowest department है. आपकी litigations उठ जाती हैं तो कई साल निकल जाते हैं उसको resolve होने में. very slow department. And one big change that is going to happen is कि अभी क्या है कि PF is separate and ESI is separate, right? We know PF कैसे लगता है और ESI कब लगता है. PF department बिल्कुल अलग है, ESI department बिल्कुल अलग है. You would have seen in one of the code on social security, that now PF and ESI comes under one single code on social security, which means you will have one officer for both PF and ESI. Imagine लेबर ऑफिसर्स, लेबर कमिश्नर जो बैठे हैं, दे आर नॉट दैट मच इतने एडुकेटेड और इतने ज्यादा कंप्लाइंट और इतने नॉलेज में नहीं है वो ऑलरेडी. अगर पीएफ वाले को पीएफ आता हो तो वही दैट इज सफिशिएंट. बट नाउ जो ऑफिसर्स बैठेंगे, दैट वन ऑफिसर वुड नो पीएफ, ईएसआई, ऑल ग्रेजुटी, कॉम्पनसेशन, एवरीथिंग. तो इमेजिन आगे लिटिगेशंस का भी क्या होने वाला है. सो अ स्मार्ट पर्सन लाइक अस इज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर दिस, फॉर coming up in coming up period to handle these kind of litigations, because the officer that is sitting just next to us, he will not be that much educated to handle all the queries at all. So he would know whom he is dealing with. अगर आप उनको पता होता है, अगर आप सीए से बात कर रहे हो तो ज्यादा comfortably, because what we do is when we go to departments, जनरली एडवोकेट से काम करते हैं तो जनरली एडवोकेट से जाते हैं, उनका अलग तरीका होता है जाने का. खुद तो कभी विजिट नहीं करते हैं, दे जनरली देयर स्टाफ विजिट्स एंड दे वेरी गुड बॉन्डिंग एंड दे हैव गुड सेटलमेंट, क्योंकि एजेस काम कर रहे हैं. they were now able to convince भी कर सकते हैं, explain भी कर सकते हैं. जरूरी नहीं डिपार्टमेंट को सब आता हो, तो they are able to create a good mix. But when the department will change, the officers will change, तो हमारा भी रोल आएगा उनको एडुकेट करने का कि हाउ वेल वी विल बी एबल टू इनके जो नए कोड्स आने से क्या चेंजेस आए, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन होने की वजह से क्लाइंट पे क्या चेंजेस आए, उसको जाके उनको तक समझाने का भी. Advocate will not be able to do this, only advocate. So again, with due respect to all the advocates present here, I'm just saying that it is again an opportunity for the CAs as well now. It is, I understand that they have a good command over it, but other than litigation part, at least a CAs can do it very well. और अगर हम compliances की बात करते हैं तो compliances of PFESI is entirely different from all other work that we do. But yes, it is also very easy. It is not that difficult. We can easily, understand. We can easily do this. But you should, actually consider this page thoroughly. Penalties. The penalties for first instance of payment of wages act में अगर आपने कोई गलती की तो आपका फर्स्ट इंस्टेंस की गलती 50,000 रुपए है. सेकेंड और सब्सिक्वेंट इंस्टेंस करते ही विद इन 5 years में अगर आप करते हैं तो आपका इम्प्रिजनमेंट up to fine up to 1 lakh. Double, just double. Okay, so I think the very easiest way to convince your client is to show the start, right? Okay, if you do not do this, you will not just be penalized, but you will also be prosecuted. ओके, क्योंकि कोई भी पेमेंट से नहीं करता शायद आपके, क्योंकि जिस पे भी ये एप्लीकेबल होगा दैट वुड बी अ वेरी बिग क्लाइंट, तो उनको शायद 50,000 या 1 लाख से भी डर ना लगे. बट डेफिनेटली इफ यू टॉक अबाउट इम्प्रिजनमेंट, देन दे विल डेफिनेटली अंडरस्टैंड द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ दिस, राइट? कॉमन सोशल सिक्योरिटी की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो फर्स्ट फेलियर पे 1 लाख. Imagine if you fail to pay or deposit employee contributions deducted from employee wages. अभी करते हैं, यस करते हैं, बहुत सारे ऐसा ज्यादा से क्या होता है, डिसअलाउंस हो जाता है. डिसअलाउंस होने के बाद टैक्स तो नहीं लगता, और वो मोस्टली हमारी टैक्स इतने बनते ही नहीं होते, राइट? तो now you will have a fine of 1 lakh and imprisonment of 1 to 3 years even on first instance, right? For second and subsequent it is 2 years and 2 lakh, double. Okay, अगर हम and you see the kind of offenses they have written, very small, जो हम generally करते हैं. नॉन मेंटेनेंस, इम्प्रॉपर मेंटेनेंस ऑफ रिकॉर्ड्स, फाइन अप टू रुपीज 10,000. कुछ रिकॉर्ड नहीं मेंटेन की, बहुत सारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं भाई, छोटे छोटे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, 20, 25, 30 एम्प्लॉय हैं, बिकॉज ऑफ द नंबर ऑफ एम्प्लॉय काउंट दे हैव कवर्ड इनटू पीएफईएसआई, बट दे आर नॉट मेंटेनिंग सैलरी शीट्स, they are not maintaining the entire data, attendance record. I don't think they have. They do not have biometric. Okay, so all these failures are still there, but fine नहीं था. अब देखो fine of rupees up to 10,000, right? फर्स्ट इंस्टेंस सोशल सिक्योरिटी कोड के अंदर 50,000 का, अगर आपने सोशल सिक्योरिटी के पीएफईएसआई रजिस्टर मेंटेन नहीं किया तो 50,000 रुपए का फाइन है सीधा. ओके, एंड सिमिलरली इफ यू सी रेस्ट ऑफ द फाइन्स एज वेल, इट इज टू मच, करेक्ट? तो अगर आप बात करेंगे तो आपका पेनल्टीज बहुत ज्यादा है इस एक्ट के अंदर। नॉन सबमिशन ऑफ रिटर्न्स की बात कर लीजिए आप चाहे, और फॉल्स रिपोर्ट देते हैं कि नहीं देते हैं? नहीं देते हैं ना। तो अगर जस्ट इन केस यू आर फाउंड गिल्टी ऑफ एनी ऑफ द एक्ट, you will be given imprisonment up to 6 months. Imagine, just imprisonment, no fine, imprisonment. So now these codes are going to be very critical and serious in future. Now हमने ये तो देख लिया कि भाई चेंजेस होने वाले हैं, बट नाउ हाउ शुड वी स्टार्ट? सबसे पहले डर यही लगता है कि नाउ व्हाट शुड वी डू, हाउ शुड वी स्टार्ट? सो फर्स्ट एंड द foremost step is understand wage and quantify financial impact. As I told you earlier, for all those who has good clients, good size client, corporate clients, manufacturing clients, labor-based industry clients, understand the definition of wage and quantify the financial impact they are going to have once the new change will come, right? जैसे ही वेज की डेफिनेशन चेंज हो जाएगी तो नई वेज पे उसकी वजह से क्या इम्पैक्ट आएगा, क्योंकि आपका सबसे पहले तो एम्प्लॉय कॉस्ट बढ़ जाएगी, रिसोर्सेज कॉस्ट बढ़ जाएगी, एक्सपेंडिचर बढ़ जाएगा बैलेंस शीट में, financials में. Okay, next is aligning HR policies. Next step, as I told you, सबसे पहले आप you cannot do everything, right? You have to educate the HR that this is how the new salary sheets will be prepared. This is the impact. This is the new contribution. This is the new number of employees that will be now covered. You have to do PF, ESI registration of the new employees as well. So all these kind of this, all the HR policies has to be realigned. पहले एम्प्लॉय ने जो प्लानिंग कर रखी थी कि मैं कंपनी में इतना पोर्शन ये ले लेता हूँ, सैलरी का इतना पोर्शन ये ले लेता हूँ, that has to be revised. The HR policy also has to be revised accordingly. Next is workforce categorization. जो हम प्लानिंग किया करते थे कि कुछ कॉन्ट्रैक्टर रख लो, कुछ ट्रेनी रख लो, कुछ ऐसे रख लो, कुछ फ्रीलांसर रख लो, कुछ फिक्स टर्म रख लो, सो दैट आपका टोटल काउंट है वो इतना ही बना रहे, एंड वी वुड नॉट बी गेटिंग इन द purview of few acts that will not going to happen very soon. और आपको वर्कफोर्स कैटेगराइजेशन पे दोबारा से काम करना पड़ेगा. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस. यू अगेन हैव टू प्लान द रिसोर्स रिक्वायरमेंट, किस एम्प्लॉय को आपको कितने काउंट में रखना है. नेक्स्ट इज बीइंग कंप्लायंट. मेरे हिसाब से फर्स्ट थिंग इज बीइंग कंप्लायंट, बिकॉज द रूल्स विल चेंज, द रिटर्न्स विल चेंज, द प्रोसेसेस विल चेंज, the online process will change, everything will change. So first is being compliant. सबसे पहले तो client को compliant करो ये सब करके, and then the litigations and inquiries. Once the new code will come, a lot of cases will get into litigations, क्योंकि old closures बहुत सारे होंगे, तो नए नए cases बहुत सारे खुलेंगे. Now a lot of people ask me whenever I do this presentation, why now? अभी तो कुछ पता ही नहीं है कि कब आएगा. Then why now? I have one single answer to this. We are standing at a point where all the labor codes has received presidential assent, and both all the codes are being approved in both the houses of parliament. It can be implemented any time. 2023 में we are very sure that it will be implemented, because election year with and a lot of things other. And I tell you, because we are in touch with the departments and labor advisory teams, so they are always into discussion that it has to be implemented. It has to be implemented very soon. So this will implement it very soon. And once, so this is where we stand. I told you our position that all the codes are being passed in both the houses. Why now? Why now? Because once the code will be implemented, you will not have that much of time to understand कि changes क्या है. You will have this much time only कि उसे implement करके changes को impact दे दें अपने books में. That is it. You will not have time कि आप changes को तब समझें and then identify the changes or the differences or the impact that it will have in your books. Because new जब जैसे ही implement होंगे, a lot of new things will also come up. It is just a summary of whatever we could understand from the the codes जो market में आए हैं, right? Once it is implemented, we would understand the actual workings कि actually में क्या changes आए हैं. A lot of things has been proposed कि ये हो जाएगा और ये हो जाएगा. Everything will not happen, or maybe some of things that were not discussed or not planned at that time in 2019, maybe अब वो implement होंगे चीजें, तो new things will come up. सो एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम जो उस वक्त इम्प्लीमेंट होगा उसको अंडरस्टैंड करके इम्प्लीमेंट कर लें, वही बहुत बड़ी चीज हो जाएगी, rather than understanding the things now कि because of the new codes क्या changes आए. तो I think that is very important कि आज ही ये जर्नी शुरू की जाए. New codes very expecting very soon with stringent penalties, or I think that is the reason we should start it as early as possible. Since it's a big process, because कोई भी change implement इतनी जल्दी नहीं होता है और ना ही हो सकता है किसी में, so I think we have to constantly support client in this journey. We have to start with assessment, then implementation, and then transition. If you have done, because we are into management consultants and we keep on doing this kind of work for them, तो I think आप जब भी किसी client के साथ नए जुड़ते हो, जब GST भी आया होगा, सबसे पहले तो हमने यही समझा होगा कि what is GST and how the existing laws will change because of GST, and then implemented GST in their books, and then completely transitioning to GST only for VAT hata sab hata, right? So this is how this code will also impact. So first step now is phase 1 में आप सिर्फ assessment करो कि अभी हमारी definitions क्या थी, currently books में हम कितना % देते थे, how we have kept the salary structure of the employee, what are our coverage of the employees, who are covered, who are not, all these kind of stuff, and then identify with the new code इसमें क्या change लाने की जरूरत है, and then align to the HR. If you have HR in your organization, if your client has HR in the organization, that is good. If not, I think they will be requiring it very soon. A lot of compliances are there, regular checks are there, regular updates are there. As I told you, appointment letter is to be issued, annual returns are to be maintained, attendance registers to be maintained, in and out time, biometric, everything will be mandatory very soon. So for all these kind of things, you have to brainstorm with your client that yes, you would be needing this kind of rules in your organization. You have to prepare yourself for this kind of work. And then transiting to a new codes, policies नहीं बनेगी HR की, salary structures बनेंगे, सारे appointment letters नहीं बनेंगे, employees के सब redesign होंगे. It requires a lot of work then. Okay, सिर्फ 2 questions मैं आपको दिखाना चाहती हूँ कि just the change in the definition एक बिजनेस पे कितना इम्पैक्ट आएगा, और ये मैंने इसको अपनी ही ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से उठा के माना है. For example, an employee has a basic salary of 12,000, uniform and washing allowance 3,000, bonus 3, 3, 6, these kind of salary structure he has, and total salary is 30,000. नाम कुछ भी दे देते हैं, salary 30,000 हो गया. आज the current wages act बोलता है आपकी definition of wages क्या होंगी, basic plus special plus HRA, which means 21,000, right? अगर हम बात करते हैं उन एक्ट्स की जिसमें आप और मैं रेगुलरली काम करते हैं, PF एक्ट की, PF एक्ट के अकॉर्डिंग योर सैलरी वुड मीन बेसिक प्लस स्पेशल अलाउंस प्लस रिटेनिंग प्लस DA, okay, which is 24,000. Basic plus special, which is 6, 6, 7, 8 plus retaining plus DA, okay, it includes all other allowances, so it means 24,000. तो आपका जो PF कैलकुलेट होता है वो 24,000 पे कैलकुलेट होता है एज करंट लॉ. मैंने कोई चेंज नहीं लाई, मैं आज की डेट पे बात कर रही हूँ इसको सिर्फ. 24,000 पे विल ही एलिजिबल फॉर PF? यस, 24,000 पे. एज पर ग्रेचुटी हिज सैलरी वुड बी 12,000, लास्ट ड्रॉन बेसिक होता है. एज पर ESI की बात करते हैं, ESI हिज सैलरी वुड बी बेसिक प्लस कैश अलाउंस एक्सक्लूडिंग बोनस, सब कुछ इंक्लूड होता है इसमें, विच इज 27 था. बोनस को हटा देते हैं, बाकी सब इंक्लूड होता है. ESIC के लिए 27,000 हो गया. नाउ as per new code your wages would be single definition for all the acts, okay? Wages would be basic plus special allowance plus retaining allowance. आपको ध्यान होगा हमने पहले डिस्कस किया, basic plus special allowance. Why special allowance? Any allowance with whatever name जिसका ऑब्जेक्टिव यही हो कि सैलरी देना है, तो स्पेशल अलाउंस, राइट, प्लस DA अगर होता तो, नहीं है तो 18,000. क्या आपका कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन टू PF ESI चेंज होगा कि नहीं? अर्लियर आपका PF जो था वो 24 पे कैलकुलेट हो रहा था, आपका जो ग्रेचुटी था वो 12 पे हो रहा था, आपका मेटर्निटी 27 पे और ESI भी 27 पे हो रहा था. नाउ एवरीथिंग विल बी ऑन 18,000. सी द इम्पैक्ट. यहाँ कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन कम हो गया आपका बढ़ने की बजाय, राइट? नाउ लेट्स सी one another example. I find it very interesting example. आपकी सैलरी स्ट्रक्चर 24,000 था, एग्जिस्टिंग लॉस के अकॉर्डिंग सैलरी मानी जाती थी, सैलरी सेम है 14,664, सैलरी में कोई चेंज नहीं है. इट इज जस्ट की वेजेस की डेफिनेशन चेंज हुई है. एग्जिस्टिंग के अंदर 24 था बेसिक, प्लस कन्विंस प्लस स्पेशल अलाउंस के बाद ईपीएफ पर्पज के लिए। ओके, और अगर हम बात करते हैं सोशल सिक्योरिटी के लिए तो 18,000 था। ठीक है, अब हमारा क्या हो जाएगा, अगर हम सोशल सिक्योरिटी कोड की बात करते हैं, क्योंकि हम सिर्फ इसमें पीएफ और ईएसआई का आपको डिफरेंस दिखाना चाहते हैं कि पीएफ ईएसआई से कैसे डेफिनेशन चेंज हो जाती है। एग्जिस्टिंग लॉ के अकॉर्डिंग आपके पीएफ पर्पस के लिए डेफिनेशन था 24,000 और ईएसआईसी मतलब सब कुछ इंक्लूड होता है, सब कुछ में 30,000 था। नए एक्ट के अकॉर्डिंग डेफिनेशन हो जाएगा आपका 18,000, राइट। 18,000 पे पीएफ लगेगा, यस, ईएसआईसी लगेगा। Now you can see employee would not be covered under the current provisions of provisions, ESIC provisions, क्योंकि उसकी सीलिंग क्या है 21,000. So a big change is going to be there with the new codes, right? आपका अगर सैलरी है ही नहीं उतना तो आपके ऊपर लगेगा ही नहीं। अब आपको मतलब फॉर एवरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इट विल बी देयर, आई थिंक फॉर अस एज वेल, कि हम अगर छोटी फर्म्स चलाते हैं, कोई हो सकता है बड़ी फर्म चलाता है जिसमें नंबर ऑफ एम्प्लॉइज चेंज है, किसी में हो सकता है स्ट्रक्चर्स भी हों। आई डोंट थिंक कि हमारी फर्म्स में भी स्ट्रक्चर होते हैं, वी जस्ट हैव सैलरी, कन्वेंस दे देते हैं ज्यादा से ज्यादा, कुछ टेलीफोन अलाउंस देना होता है तो वो देते हैं, दैट इज इट। आई डोंट थिंक वी हैव मच स्ट्रक्चर, तो हमारे लिए तो मुझे डेफिनेशन सेम ही होगी। इट इज जस्ट कि 50% जो पॉइंट है कि 50% आपका टोटल सैलरी का 50% वेजेस होना चाहिए, वो लगेगा। लेकिन इमेजिन अ सिचुएशन जहां पे जो टोटल लेबर बेस्ड इंडस्ट्री है, जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है, वहां पे देयर इज अ ह्यूज सेग्रीगेशन ऑफ द सैलरी एंड देयर यू विल फाइंड अ डिफरेंस। जो एम्प्लॉय पहले पीएफ में आता था वो पीएफ में नहीं आएगा, जो एम्प्लॉय पहले ईएसआईसी में आता था वो एम्प्लॉय ईएसआईसी में नहीं आएगा। करेक्ट, दिस इज द चेंज। सो इन दिस केस हमारा जो नया डेफिनेशन था 18,000, तो हमारा पीएफ एप्लीकेबल नहीं है, ईएसआई स्टिल देयर बिकॉज 21,000 होती है, बट पीएफ तो हट ही गया। नाउ दिस पर्सन विल नॉट बी एलिजिबल फॉर पीएफ एट ऑल। ये ग्रेचुटी में हमने सेम कैलकुलेट किया है। अगर आप इस एग्जाम्पल को देखते हैं तो यू विल रियलाइज कि एक सिंगल पर्सन का चेंज कितना बड़ा है। तो इमेजिन अ कंपनी जिसमें ज्यादा नहीं, कम से कम भी मान लेते हैं 20 एम्प्लॉइज अगर हैं, तो उसका कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन में कितना चेंज आ जाएगा। आई विल शो यू दैट। एग्जिस्टिंग लॉस के अकॉर्डिंग आपकी ग्रेचुटी की टोटल सैलरी बनी आपकी, उसके बेसिस पे ग्रेचुटी बनेगी आपकी 161,538। ओके, नए वेजेस के नए सैलरी स्ट्रक्चर के अकॉर्डिंग, नए डेफिनेशन के अकॉर्डिंग आपका जो ग्रेचुटी बनेगा वो 2 लाख बनेगा। 161 एंड 2 लाख मतलब 40,000 पर पर्सन का चेंज आया है। तो इमेजिन अगर आपके 50 एम्प्लॉय हैं तो कितना बड़ा चेंज आ गया। यू इमेजिन द फाइनेंशियल ऑफ द एंटिटी दैट इज गोइंग टू चेंज विद दिस, राइट। तो दैट इज द रीजन वी आर सेइंग कि आज ही आप एस्टिमेट करो। And I'm not saying take up your clients which have 20, 30 employees, but look for your clients that have 50 to 100 employees. उनमें भी बहुत बड़ा impact है. And I'm sure your consultancy will matter there. You can advise them really good. कैसे salary structure design कर सकते हैं आप. And I tell you, a lot of consultancy firms, big firms, a lot of IT companies and few other companies have already changed the salary structure of the employees. My family member is working for another company. They've already changed the salary structure of employee as per the new codes. Because otherwise it is, mind game. You have to brainstorm the employee कि आपका salary ऐसे change होने वाला है, right? So they have started, receiving notices from the employees that we do not want to go into this structure. We want existing one, but this and this. But they have now started working on the salary structures. IT companies, they are doing it right now. They are restructuring their salary structures because sooner or later this will be implemented. And once it is implemented, the entire scenario will change of a company, and company will take time to revive from this big change. Okay, I think that is it about my presentation. And in case you have anything, you can always contact me, or maybe we are open for Q&A as well. Anybody from organizer side would like to take up the questions? I actually cannot see the questions. Please.
Hi, uh, hi Ruchita. It was really great. I really enjoyed the whole session. But I have few questions to be asked, and a few questions even participants have asked to
Okay.
us.
Mhm.
Uh, can I take up one by
Yes,
one?
please. Yes, please.
Yeah. So the first question is, does the labor code is like insolvency and bankruptcy code which overrides all other acts?
No, not at all. They are already existing. We are already having labor laws in process, and we just have to use the new codes once it is implemented. It is not yet implemented. First of all, please make sure that it is not yet implemented, because people start saying that we have never heard of it because it is not yet implemented. But once it is implemented, it is not like or I mean, there is a specific mention of the labor codes that for this scenario you have to use labor law or labor code, else it is not like bankruptcy code and all at all. But yes, certain provisions are there only in labor law. For example, if I ask you where is leave encashment policy, or maybe where it is written that an employee will get this number of leaves in a year, you will not find in anywhere else. You will find in shop and establishment act only. So that is how certain provisions are only in certain acts. That is it. Yes, next one, please. Did I answer your question, please? Sneha, am I audible?
I think there was some technical issue.
Okay.
Sorry for that. Okay. Now, second question is, can we reduce the period from 5 years to
For
2.5 years? Uh,
No, no,
Under
no. They have not
Gratuity Act.
reduced anything. The Gratuity Act says that if an employee worked for 5 years, he is eligible for gratuity. But since the new labor codes are also applicable for fixed term employment, fixed term contractual employees, new rules will be formed for those employees who are on fixed term employment basis. So the year will be reduced from them. Yes, for them, a new definition will come that if they cover this particular year in an organization, they will be covered under Gratuity Act and they will be given gratuity. We cannot reduce 2.5 years. We cannot. The rules are still the same.
Okay, thank you. Right. The next question is it mandatory under new code to provide paid leaves every
No,
month to the employee?
no. Actually, as I told you, that leaves is not there in any labor act yet. Because once I had a litigation on leaves only. So we searched every act and there is no leave, there is no provision for leaves in labor acts. It is there in shop and establishment act. Okay. So accordingly, the reference will be given to that act, but mandatory paid leaves is not there in any of the labor act.
Right. Okay. So next question is when are we expecting this new codes to get implement and do we have to take registration for existing registered person as we did GST?
Yes, yes, yes. You would need new registrations definitely. The platforms would change, the processes will change, the return filing process will change, everything will be changed. So you need new registrations. So to be very honest, we were expecting it on 15th August. Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav bhi chal raha tha. So we were expecting around 15th August and we were very much prepared for that, as we are very much dependent on this now, because I am just, for example, I am practicing in labor law since 2 years now, and we are expecting this to come ASAP. But because of the, I think, elections and all, it got postponed, and then the consent of all the states is required. So we have the consent of almost all the states. I had the stats from the states as well, but I am not able to find it right now. So we have the consent from various states, but on few of the acts, consent of few states are pending, and because of that, it was not implemented. We expect it just after the elections now because it is a high priority item. As I told you,
Right.
a lot of labor laws are made before independence. If you see the acts, as I showed in the first slide, the categorization of laws. A lot of laws are made before independence. At that time, the scenario was altogether changed. The kind of employees were different, the labor were different, and the ruler were different, right? Employer were different. So the rules were made from a different mindset altogether, and that is the reason it needs a big change. Yes.
Right.
So no date to
Ma'am,
be
next,
announced yet, but yes, expected to be very soon, and we really want something to come new so that we get new work.
right. Ma'am, the next question is there any minimum number of workers criteria for applicability of this new
For
code?
every act, there is a minimum number of workers requirement. For example, PF has 10, ESI has 20. There is no change in that yet.
Right. Then, ma'am, what does the new code says about superannuation contribution?
So it is not a change. So we talked about only changes that is there in the new code. So there is no change in that right now. It means that existing provisions will remain same.
Right. Then it is then the question is, are there any
You are not
salaries
properly audible.
like
Maybe your
STI,
network
for
is weak or my
example,
network. I'm not able to hear.
can you hear me now?
Yes, in between your voice breaks. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I'll try.
Okay.
Let's see.
So the next question is, though it is going to simplify the things, why there are still different consideration of wages for PF?
There is no different consideration for wages for PF. So definition of wages will be standard now. The wages would mean PA, basic plus DA plus retaining allowance. Retaining allowance is anything to retain the employee, means anything you're paying to the employee is retaining allowance. If it does not have a specific name, if it does not have a HRA name, it means you're paying to employee to retain him in the organization, right? There is no separate distinction for a PF. It is still the same. And in fact, the wages is not same for all the acts. You will not, rather the differentiation has now been removed. It is a standard definition. Earlier, there was a difference. PF for PF, there is a different definition. For ESI, there is a different definition. Gratuity is different. Leave encashment is different. Everything was different earlier. Now it will be same for all the acts and for all the definitions, calculations.
Right. So, ma'am, once this new act will be implemented, the old codes, whichever were there, or old acts, that will be stopped by the government, right?
Right. It will be.
So, what about the litigations which are going on still for the current act, which are applicable?
Absolutely. That's a big question. That's a very good question. As I told you on the first page itself, that we have 4 lakh plus litigations outstanding till date when I prepared this presentation. And there will be a quick dispersal of the litigations existing, and there will be new litigations, because with the new code coming, the officers will change from the respective places, because we are now going to have one officer for PF and ESI. And if their litigation is for PF, that officer might not be able to understand the litigation, because he might not be working on it PF earlier now and was working on ESI, but he has now been appointed at the officer level. So it is going to be, very tricky at that time. Yes. And that is the reason I mentioned that our intervention will be there. We are the person who can better explain to the officer, because we have read both the acts. Currently as well, if you see, the person who are dealing with these officers, they also do not have much knowledge, because we have the knowledge of all the acts. We have started this in final. We are studying it. We are using it, not purely, but yes, we are using it in some pieces in different work of ours. So we understand the acts very well than other people. So it is us who can actually practice on it, and we can actually understand the differences and communicate back to the officer. And that's where our role comes. Yes, litigation would be really difficult. The quick disposal would be there, and litigations will suddenly increase after the implementation.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. It is really valuable for all of us, and really enjoyed to have a crisp of the whole new code in such a simple language. But now I would request CA Dharmi Dharod to please give an a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Ruchi ma'am, for such an engaging session. Normally,
Dharmi, you are not audible.
I can hear.
uh,
I can hear.
okay, great. That's great. Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, first of all, thank you, Ruchi ma'am, for such an engaging session. Normally, if we see labor laws, first thing, the only thing that comes to our mind is only PF and ESIC, or at the most gratuity. But
Right.
here, a customer is everyone with so many laws that are in place under the umbrella of labor law, apart from PF, ESIC, and gratuity. Also, the way you have shown the statistics, we hardly think of that. The numbers that you have are really mind blowing. The number of cases that are pending and the plethora of opportunities that are lying for chartered accountants to practice in labor laws is really amazing. You have also taken us on how we can leverage our existing client base and expand our practice on the labor laws. That was really amazing. Also, you have taken us through the registration requirements, the definition of wages, which is the most important thing under the labor laws, the registration assessments, penalties, which are important. And if we share this with our business, and I'm sure that they will be aware of how important it is under this new era to follow the labor laws.
Right.
And also, you have taken us through the amendments that are going to take place in the labor laws is really amazing. Uh, it was though it was not a interactive session, like it was not open to all, but by giving us the examples and live case studies, you have really made it more live and interactive. So really, thank you for that, and it was really a fun and very knowledgeable session. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just want to say one thing at the end that we need to, identify opportunity in our business itself, in our clients itself, and then there is a huge scope outside. Some people say that we do not have this big client that we identify, or we may propose this kind of changes to them. But believe me, today in this digital era, no client is far away. You can reach to any client, and it is just that people should know that yes, you are aware of the concept, right? Because this knowledge is going to be very, very magnificent in future, because very less people are working on it. That is the only thing I want to say. Anyone wants to work with me, I'm open to that. Anybody has any query for their clients, they any help you need from me, I'm there.
Awesome. That's really great. Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you,
Yes,
thank
it
you.
Dewa.
was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
everyone and providing me
Thank you
this
so much.
opportunity. I really wanted to thank Preeti ma'am and Abhay sir for giving me this opportunity. And I got to know a lot of participants were there in the session. I'm thankful to all the coordinators of the program. I want to thank them first because they were so flawless, and they were coordinating it so well with me. And I think I'm sure the WMEC is doing a great work. All right, thank you.
Thank you.